You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is the program called Ignite Yourself. How you going, Carol?
I'm really good. Ignite yourself, living life on your terms. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What do you think it means, Ken?
Well, living life on your terms. I don't think too many people do that, actually.
I totally agree with you, and that's why I'm here to help. That's what I'm here to shine the light on that so that we can look at what does that mean. It's different for everybody.
Yep.
But I think one of the key things is that you live your life not about what things are happening to me, but how I can manage things. So living a little bit more empowered.
Yep, and that's what it's all about. What's today's topic about? Today's
topic is all about connection. And I think it was Michelangelo that said to touch is to give life. Mm-hmm. And so it's quite a topic that really, we've got a sense in this community and in this world now where we are being less touchy, if you like, less touchy-feely. We're on the Facebook and we're on the Instagram and we're on all these devices, and then we've got people living by themselves, alone towards the end of their lives. We've got people just isolating themselves from the rest of the community, and that connection is what we are meant to have. We're a community. We're a bunch of beings that enjoy being together. And for our wellness and our wholeness, we have to be with each other.
So you're talking about connecting on an emotional basis or on a physical, or both?
Both. Absolutely both, yeah. Because actually, our skin is our biggest organ. Mm-hmm. And actually, those receptors in the skin, when someone actually reaches out and touches or feels another person, that causes serotonin to start moving around our body. And serotonin is our happy, feel-good hormone. And just those very small touches actually do promote a sense of well-being. So essentially, when you're cutting yourself off from others, you are almost cutting yourself off from yourself. So it's really just looking and delving into a bit of that stuff today.
Interesting that you bring up social media. So what are you saying, that you can't have a connection with people on an emotional basis via the web? Obviously, you can't have a physical connection.
Yes. You can definitely have an emotional connection with someone, yes, and that's another aspect of connection. And I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. It's certainly not a bad thing as such, but it's bad when that's all we have and we don't have the other balances of life. So it's trying to think about how do we balance our life out so that we're getting a little bit from everything.
Okay, talk me through the process. So I come along to you, and I'm a sort of person, which I'm not, but just say I sit at home and I'm on the internet all the time, and that's the only way I connect with you.
Are you sure, Ken? Come on, you can confess here. It's okay. It's a safe place, Ken.
No, look, I mean, what happens in the weekend? For instance, I don't take my phone anywhere with me.
Yeah.
Unless I'm going out to work. But then my wife will say, "Well, where's your phone?" I said, "Well, I don't need it. It's the weekend."
Right.
I can disconnect from it. I don't need it.
Yes.
But I find that a lot of people, their biggest thing is, where's my phone?
Yes.
As soon as they get in the car, oops, just better check just in case I got a message.
Yes.
That's the problem, isn't it?
It can be. It really can be, especially when it's coming between you and the physical interaction with the person. So many people now, you can go out and you can be in a cafe. Have you done this? I've recently
absolutely.
done it. Seen people, and they're having a conversation, but they're also checking their phone every 5 minutes. And actually, sometimes they're just sitting there and not even looking at each other, but they're looking at the phone.
Have you done
I've seen entire families sit at a meal. I watched one just the other day. Come in, sit down. The small one was on a device, watching a little video. The other one was texting or playing a game or something. And the parents were both on their phones.
That's terrible.
So do you think that family was having? What sort of connection do you think that family was having?
Not much of a connection. But who's to fault there?
It's all of us. It's definitely the parents, but also it's all of us, because we're all in this place. In fact, there was a funny article that talked about if aliens were to come in and look at us from above, they would see all these people looking down the whole time, and they'd think, what the heck are they worshipping that thing in their hand for? What is going on? And that's what we're doing. So I think the whole thing is to have a moderation, in a bit of, as I said before, a little bit from everything.
Yeah.
So what's interesting around some of the research that's come out around this is that when different societies have different levels of connection, so I'll come back to the whole use of phones and stuff like that, but different societies have different levels of connection. So in England, for instance, they did a study, and people were good friends getting together to have a chat. So they touched one another twice in the hour's interaction.
Yes.
And that's just the average. So that's, but English people are quite withdrawn in a general kind of sense. And there's quite a high level of depression. So depression and happiness and stuff is all linked in with all of this sort of connection stuff as well. And then interestingly, somewhere like Puerto Rico, where they're quite flamboyant and out there and stuff, 138 times these two friends touch one another, chatting and whatnot, so and probably in New Zealand, I don't know what the stats would be, but we'd certainly be around the English side.
We're very English.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think that's just part of our heritage, what we've been taught as we've come forward. There's the whole, DNA, Indigenous people, and then, you've got the Māori as well, and so, some of that's different as well, but across it all, we're less likely to be touchy-feely than we are to embrace or kiss one another on the cheek, or show that bit of vulnerability, I suppose, around connecting like that.
And that's the funny thing.
If you touch someone and they don't like it, what are you going to do?
Well, that's right. You have them arrested.
Well, that could happen as well.
Harassment.
That could happen as well.
Of course, it could.
But I mean, back to the whole thing around the connection with the phone. There's some definite strategies we can do around that, and especially for our kids, and that is limiting the time on it and spending that time. So, for instance, just some very, very basic ground rules of no devices at the table. None, because you don't actually need to be near it, within the half an hour that you're eating your meal. You know,
you're dead right.
Unless you're a surgeon on call that's going to save someone's life, you actually don't need that device at the table at all.
Good luck on winding that clock back. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no, it's my house. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. But do you sit at the table?
We do sit at a table, yeah.
I put it to you, though, that most people don't these days. Most people either got a little tray, sit in front of the telly, watch the news, which is what we do at my place.
Right.
And we sit around, and because we love the news.
Right.
And
it's right at tea time.
And it's right at tea time.
Right.
And, there's only the two of us at home at the moment. But I did notice last night when we had the kids over for tea that, the kids in particular are on the mobiles. And I say, hang on, you've come to visit.
Yeah.
Put them away.
Yeah, it's almost like a social crutch.
It is.
It's sort of like, well, I can't talk to you, but I can talk to this. And so if we don't wind the clock back, if we don't actually make a conscious effort, so for instance, when your children come over, leave the device at the door, guys, we're going to have some time together, we're going to get less and less connected. We're going to lose that feeling and ability to converse like you and I are now.
Yeah, and that's probably the crux of it. We've lost the ability to converse. Why is that?
Because of these things. There's too much going on. There's too many things coming into our sphere of influence. And because we've got a sphere of influence that allows us to do what we do and how we react to the world. And there's too much coming in and not enough going out. We're not having enough influence out externally to ask, what can I do about this, or how can I? So we're almost getting into what I call victim mentality, where why is this happening to me? What's going on for me? We need to start thinking above the line and thinking, well, how do I make this work for me, or how can I make it done by me rather than to me?
Why have we lost the ability to connect, even verbally today? So we get home, in the good old days, I came home from school. We certainly did sit around the table. And we did chat about what went on at school, but it was a pretty shallow type of conversation, because he's sort of not saying you got the impression that no one really wanted to know, but you know what I mean. That there's only so much you can talk about.
Well, it was the kids should be seen and not heard thing, right?
That's right, it was back then.
Yeah.
And but it's not today.
No, and children have a lot more ability to be able to stand up for themselves. There's a lot more stuff around kids' rights and stuff like that, children's rights and stuff.
I suppose even though you're sitting around the table, you don't get home tonight and say, okay, well, let's just talk about what's happening in Palestine.
No, we don't have those types yet. We don't have those conversations yet. That's not to say that we will.
What sort of conversations do you have?
Well, one of the things, and I talk to my clients about this, is that we promote a whole, what three things went well for me today, or what am I grateful for? And so my little one starts. generally. I want to go first, right?
Yeah.
She takes 3 of us, so we try and just the 3 things, thanks, not the 10.
Okay, but I put it to you that happens at your house because you're on the business that you're in.
Yes.
Now, whereas the average person, they're not going to do that. But it would be interesting to hear from some of the stories from your clients that you've said, look, this is what you've got to do. How does it work out for them?
That works out fantastically. And I tell you, you'd be surprised how many people actually are doing a similar type thing. They're asking, how was the day? But what I'm getting them to do is actually concentrate on some of those, again, bring in those good feeling factors. What were the things that went well for me? If there was a challenge, you can certainly discuss that, but probably take it away from the food. So the idea is when you're having your meal, this is all to do with making sure your stomach works really well as well and digest the food. So there's a little bit of science in behind it, but essentially you sit down and you have your meal discussing what makes you feel good. You enjoy that meal together, and you're happy to hear, that be part of the happy things that happen for that other family member. And then if there's something that needs to be discussed, okay, we will talk about that after we've finished the meal, and then go offline with one-on-one to talk about it or whatever, because generally they might mention something, but they don't want to air it in front of the entire family unit, so often the daughter doesn't want to compete with the son, or the 2 boys don't want to compete, so it's better to have that one-on-one conversation outside of it.
Okay, so the people have actually come to see you, so we've got this problem connecting with our kids or our husband or our wife, and they've gone out of their way to try it. Do they keep it up?
Yeah, so I give them some homework to do. So you may or may not be aware, but new data now is 66 days to form a habit, which, it was 21 and then it was 28.
Yeah, who changed that? I mean, it always was 3 weeks, wasn't it?
It's just essentially because they've seen now that the habits don't stick unless they change. And it's part of a paradigm. It can be called a paradigm where you hang on to something, because you think it's doing you good, but it's not. So replacing that habit with something good, that bad habit with something good, doing it for 66 days. So they have that as their little sort of warm-up exercise, if you like, and then we start going into more little tips and ways that they can do things, especially at night before you go to bed, setting the intention for your day the next day around having a mindset that's ready to go for tomorrow, picking one great thing that you'll get done tomorrow that'll make you feel good. And maybe that one thing might even be just that you will spend 10 minutes in the park on your own. Just 10 minutes.
Connecting with no one.
Connecting with no one, but connecting with nature and connecting with yourself, because it's not just about connection with others, even though that's the thing that actually causes us to have the greatest joy and can give us the greatest sorrow. But essentially we want the greatest joy, but also that time to connect in with yourself and just reflect and say, you know what, things are going well, or actually there's a few challenges here and I might need to give Carol a call, actually.
Yeah, that's right. And what is your phone number?
So you can give me a call on 021 774 058, and it's Soulpreneur, so SOULpreneur, think of an entrepreneur, PRENEURS.co.nz.
Now, that connection we just talked about, talking to your kids or your husband or your wife or your grandparents at tea time, what sort of connection is it? It's not an emotional connection, is it? It's not a physical connection. What type of connection is it?
What do you mean?
Well, it's not an emotional question. You're saying, how'd you get on at school today? Oh, you're pretty good. That's not emotional, is it?
you're building the strength of that relationship, because every connection that you're having with them, good or bad, is building the relationship. And you want to build a relationship that's strong. You want a family unit that's strong, so that you can go back there and find safety there if you need to. And sometimes family units aren't always in the safe space. So I work with some clients where that's not always the case. So we then start working on different strategies and bring in different people if it's something that's a little bit more drastic and needing a lot of attention.
So we are connecting emotionally with people by having a chinwag about how'd you get on at work? Oh, you're pretty good.
Yeah. So that's the level you're talking about, the level of conversation. Yeah. It can vary for different people, but even just that simple moment of being able to even have a place where you, and this is about being a little bit more heart-centered, a little bit more aware of others, and sometimes being a little bit vulnerable, and that might be scary, but saying, hey, actually, my day's not very good. For instance, I saw a good friend the other day in a cafe and I said, how are you? And she said, I'm not gonna say I'm not good because my husband's just gotten through cancer. I went, oh, well, that's really sad to hear. But because we've got enough of a connection, she felt safe enough to be able to say, I'm not, not brush it off. And that's what I'm allowing people to find in their own hearts, is that, we're allowed to actually connect with others on a place where perhaps it's a little bit more vulnerable, feels a little bit uncomfortable, but actually, when you do that, someone else generally comes to the place.
Exactly.
You know?
I also might put it to you that people that you would talk to who are using their devices a lot, if you said to them, you're emotionally disconnected, they would probably disagree with you.
Well, they could. Let's have that. I'd love to pick up the phone and let's have a chat about it.
But they probably would, wouldn't they? Because they would hate to think that, yes, you're right, this device has taken over my life, which in many cases it has. But do you find that people don't agree with your observation of them?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I had a client not so long ago, and he was his wife had complained about that they'd gone away on holiday and he'd taken his device and he wasn't actually spending as much time with her as they'd planned to do, because he kept going and checking. So when we actually got down to that when we got down to the level that we needed to on that one, it was more around the fact he was concerned about what was happening back at work. He was very concerned about what was happening back at work, so much so that he couldn't give his connection to his wife. But when we pulled that apart and recognised it, he recognised that actually this is what really matters. What really matters is my relationship with my wife.
Sure.
You know, work matters, but this is the priority.
Yeah.
So it's understanding what is and the priority is your family right now when you're having a meal with them. It is that time that you can spare. It's only half an hour, or even in a situation like that, I said, well, how about you spend a little bit of time every day that you check in. So you're only checking in once a day. If you really can't leave it alone, half an hour once a day. Or twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And everything else, you're with her 100%, you know. So then he felt he could manage that, because there was stuff he was dealing, he had to answer queries from staff and things like that. Now, ideally, you don't want to set it up like that. You actually want to empower your staff to be able to take care of your business, so that you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. My staff take care of my business, my other businesses that I have, and it's what it's all about, empowering people.
I wonder why also we don't really seem to like talking to people on the phone. I mean, we'll send 100 texts. Why don't we just pick up the phone and say, "G'day, Carol, how you going?"
Because you know what that is? That comes down to time, eh? I think that's
Does it really?
Yeah, I think so, because a text is a fast thing, and you know that you can send that and you'll still get the answer or result. If you pick up the phone, you know it won't be a 5-minute conversation. It's just like when you walk down the street and you know you've got to go somewhere and here's someone you know. Oh, this is going to be, add another 5 minutes.
Unless you're a man, that is.
Unless you're a man, what? And you're
men
so
get on
good
the phone, they say, "G'day, how you going? I'm pretty good, thank you. I'll catch up with you next week."
I think that's absolute rot. I've seen men talk worse than women.
You've seen men talk for at least 2 minutes. But is that an issue as well? Because it's all very well that you say, well, a text can be quickly, but I've seen people texting backwards and forwards, and I've said, why don't you just pick up the phone and have a chat?
Yeah, well, sometimes that is about their relationship,
disconnection, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes it is about the fact that they don't actually want to have that physical conversation. They want to do a talking, and sometimes it's actually a comical thing. You know, they're using different language in the text than they would over the phone. You know, they're using a colloquialism in the text. You know, that they like doing,
and also safety.
Emojis and all these blooming things that they put out.
You
there.
don't have to talk to people if you're texting them.
Yeah, but what is talking? Talking's very similar to what you're doing in a text, just that you're using a different.
I think it's a disconnection. And you're talking about connecting, and I think that we don't have to talk to you. Let's just do it. Might as well write a letter.
Well, you could be right there. Yeah, you could be right there.
I was once.
Hadn't thought about that side of it. I just think we're so busy and focused on the next thing and the next thing. One of the other things I talk to my clients about is living in the now. What does that look like? If you just stopped for a minute and lived in the now.
Yeah. What is that? What is living in the now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're getting to a point where we're outside of that. So that's why mindfulness, meditation, all that sort of stuff is becoming such a prevalent role in society, and for people to understand that if they just slowed down for a minute, took that time, then they can feel that little bit more of connection and set their day up in a way that works.
And it's very easy to be mindful. Like you say, it takes half a minute to be mindful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But also, we've talked about emotional connections, and you've also talked about physical connection. We haven't got much time left. Why is physical connection so important to us?
So number one, as I said before, we've got this lovely skin, which is the biggest organ in our body, and physical connection actually allows the receptors in the skin to go into the neocortex and into the rest of the brain to be able to start the hormonal process of serotonin, that feel-good feeling, the love feeling, all that sort of stuff to start coming around. So that whole kind of I want to have a cuddle,
Yep.
you know, actually really does have a lot of meaning, and it allows people to allow them to connect in a way that beforehand they may not have. Now, you and I talked about before you know, when someone touches you on the arm, perhaps if you may not be comfortable with that. So you've got to have discernment and know when can I give someone a hug and when can't I, and you can actually see that. And I'm a hugger, so I can tell if someone wants to do that or not. I just read the sign and I open my body up to it. So it's one of those things that you learn over time. If you're someone that doesn't like physical touch, it's quite an interesting one, because it will be having some other effects in your life, and we would be able to unpack some of that.
That's a good point that you raised a bit earlier, that overseas people are generally, more touchy-feely. But do you think it could also be within our own society, particularly here and in New Zealand and for instance, and in England, that people are now so politically correct that you think, well, if I give Carol a hug, it could be misinterpreted and I'm going to be in trouble. Or if I cuddle my granddaughter too much, or is that a problem as well that we have in society?
Yeah, there's certainly things to consider around those aspects, because there is bad situations where touch is not appropriate.
But is that why, for instance, probably a lot of guys aren't connecting physically with people around them because they think, if I do this and that person there doesn't like what I'm doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because more and more of different cultures are coming to the world, right? So the world is getting a smaller and smaller place in terms of our own understanding of different cultures. And in fact, when you peel away people's cultures, we're actually all the same on the inside. We all want to be loved. We all want to have connection. We all want to be accepted, right? That's why we're here in this world, to be able to connect with one another. And so when more societies come in with their abilities to, the French come in and the Europeans and things like that with their vivaciousness and some of the stuff, the South Americans and all that sort of thing, when they come in with their kisses on each cheek. And, I can remember years ago watching rugby with Dad and watching the soccer players with Dad, and Dad going, oh, look, they give one another a kiss. That's not okay, Right. And Dad was a farmer, so rugby was it. But, you don't do that nowadays. You recognise that, that's a person from another culture.
Exactly.
So we're more accepting, we're becoming more tolerant. And so it's just being able to recognise that actually, well, it's okay if I want to shake your hand and put my other hand on it and actually give you a proper shake, or whatever it might be, to touch one another.
I agree with you 100%, but other people that are coming to see you, do they come and see, look, my husband doesn't touch me like he used to, or my wife doesn't, we don't have the cuddles? Is that happening as well? And what do you say to that?
Yes. So that's another level of disconnection, like you're saying, and often that's around the emotional side. And so that's just delving into and unpacking some of that. And I think too, it's for me being able to say that if that is happening, that it's okay to come and speak and talk about it, because quite often it's a little bit scary to do that, because if you come to me and then what would happen if I came to you, Carol, and then
make yourself vulnerable?
But actually, I have to actually end up leaving him, or I have to actually go,
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be that scary. It can just simply be let's have a look at it, unpack it, and see what comes out of it. It doesn't have to be the outcome that you think that it might be. It's often there's stuff happening for them that you're not aware of, and there's things there's tools that I can give the individual to help the other individual, and they're really great in terms of being able to. You don't have to even do much with person number 2, but person number 1, we make a change here. 2 changes anyway, because 1's changing, so 2 changes at the same time, and oftentimes it rights itself.
Just about out of time, Carol. Just remind our listeners, we want to come and see you to talk to you about emotional or physical connections in our life, or a whole bunch of other stuff. Where are you?
So I'm based in Hastings in Hawke's Bay, and I'm at www.soulpreneurs.co.nz. You can send me an email, carol@soulpreneurs, soulpreneurs.co.nz, 021 774 058. Love to hear from you.
As always, our pleasure. Look after yourself. Talk to you next time.
Thanks, Ken.